Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Theravada Buddhism series, Dhamma talk number 80. Abhidhamma day. After the 6th rain retreat, the Buddha set out to Rajagaha of Magadha kingdom. The Buddha prohibited the monks from using psychic powers to recruit followers or to impress anyone. The other religious leaders of the 6 different popular groups view this new as an opportunity to stop the speedy growth of Buddhism over theirs. They had a meeting and decided to send a psychic power challenge publicly. The thought behind was that by doing so, the Buddha got trapped by his rule not to exercise the psychic ability to collect followers. King Bimbisara of Rajagaha, a devotee of the Buddha, became worried and asked the Buddha how to handle this situation. Then the Buddha asked the king whether he lay down an order that no one could pick mangoes from the mango tree in his garden. To which the king replied, yes. Then the Buddha asked again whether his gardener picked the mangoes from the tree to serve him. The king said yes. He could pick mangoes for me. My order did not affect me. Then suddenly the king understood that was the case. And was relieved. Otherwise, many of his citizens would shift and follow other religious teachers. Then the Buddha told the king to publicly announce that the Buddha would take the challenge and have a psychic power contest on the river bank near Vesali. another city. In 3 months' time, on the full moon day of July, the Buddha was by the river bank of Vaisali on the full moon day of July, which is the eve of his 7th rain retreat. No other religious leaders came for the contest. They did not dare to show up. The river banks were full of people from the city and also across from the kingdom. They traveled far and wide to witness this contest. Super normal power contest. But there was no one to compete with the Buddha. So the Buddha rose in the air between the river's bank and emitted water and fire simultaneously from the alternate pores of his body. Displaying the two opposing forces, fire and water. Simultaneously from a person was probably considered the highest form of psychic ability. After the display, the Buddha rose and went to Deva, Deva to spend his 7th rain retreat. So he decided to spend his 7th rain retreat in Deva. There's a purpose behind it. His spending 7th rain retreat in Deva. The objective in going to the Deva was to deliver Dhamma, specifically intended for a Deva. And that Deva was his late mother, Queen Mahamaya, in the previous life. Queen Mahamaya passed away 7 days after the Buddha's birth and was reborn as a male Deva in Deva, Deva. The Buddha wanted to show his gratitude to his late mother. That's the reason he went there, to deliver the Dhamma intended for that Deva. The Buddha delivered Abhidhamma for 3 human months continuously. So we have to stress the word 3 human months, because there's times are different between the human realms and Deva realms. Just to understand it, not precisely but somewhat, let's say, a year in the human realm might be a day in the Deva realm, depending on which Deva realms, of course, just to have an understanding. Even though it was 3 months in the Deva realm that the Buddha was delivering Abhidhamma, it was not a long period in the Deva realm. Maybe a few hours over there. The Abhidhamma given in the Deva realm was the most detailed and prolonged version, the longest version. Many Devas and Brahmas from 10,000 galaxies came and listened to the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha descended to the human realm daily for alms round. Now, this is a human time. Every one day in the morning in the human time, the Buddha came down to the human realm, leaving a clone body in Deva realm, still teaching Abhidhamma. A clone body was left in the Deva realm, but still teaching, and the, let's call it, biological body came down to the human realm to go for alms round. The Devas and the Brahmas did not even know that it was a clone teaching. Every day the Buddha came down to the human realm, and Venerable Sariputta received the Buddha to listen to the Abhidhamma the Buddha was teaching in the Deva realm. So we need to know about Venerable Sariputta. He was the most brilliant and intelligent and wisest person next to the Buddha. Bar none. So the Buddha didn't need to utter all what he has taught in the Deva realm. Just a few lines or a phrase. Okay? In other words, a summary, a brief summary in a few lines of a phrase of what he have taught over there. And just from that, Venerable Sariputta understood what Buddha meant thoroughly. And this teaching to the Venerable Sariputta is the shortest versions of Abhidhamma delivered by the Buddha. The longest one to the Devas, the shortest one to the Sariputta. Then Sariputta would return to the monastery and teach a handful of brilliant monks, perhaps around 30. I said 30 because about 25-30 is a good crowd that can hear a person talking with clarity without using any tools. Nowadays we have speakers and things like that. In those days there is simply just a space between the speaker and the group, and the 30 would be sufficient to hear quite well. Venerable Sariputta elaborated and expanded to a certain degree from what he had heard from the Buddha, so that the student monks could understand and comprehend. Because if he just repeat what he has heard, the other monks would not understand fully. So he has to elaborate it and expand it. The middle length version of Abhidhamma. So this teaching from the Sariputta is not as short as what the Buddha taught to him, or as long as what the Buddha taught to the Deva. Somewhere in the middle length. So we call it the middle version. The middle length version. That version of Abhidhamma flows down from generation to generation of monks from that moment till now. Today we are all reading and learning the middle length version, which contains 7 volumes. Theravada Buddhist countries, especially Myanmar, accepted the Abhidhamma came directly from the Buddha. That's a Buddhist teaching, a part of the 3 baskets. Sutta discourses, Vinaya disciplines and rules for the monks, and Abhidhamma, philosophical, psychological teachings of the Buddha. Three baskets or 3 divisions. And Theravada Buddhists believe that Abhidhamma came directly from the Buddha. Even though it is expanded or elaborated by Venerable Sariputta. A handful of monks in Myanmar specialized and mastered the Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma is let's call it, it flows into the daily life of the people. And that Abhidhamma was conceived and flew from the Buddha, elaborated by the right-hand chief disciple, Sariputta. I'm repeating it again and again, this point, because there are people in the world who does not believe that Abhidhamma came from the Buddha. But that's another story. Just to note, one of the Venerable Sariputta's duty was to elaborate on several teachings of the Buddha, of course, with Buddha's approval, so that other monks could understand easily. And also he taught it from various points, from different angles, different approaches to the same thing. And we can see that in the scriptures many a times. So it is not that Venerable Sariputta is expanding only Abhidhamma or elaborating Abhidhamma. That was his duty. Because Buddha could not do everything himself. There are many duties the Buddha has for humanity. So that was, so to speak, the assigned duty of Venerable Satipatthana, to expand, to elaborate, approach from different angles to the same subject, so that the next group of brilliant monks could understand, and then they in turn spread the Dharma from one place to the other, from one generation to the other. Because at that time, everything was transmitted orally. On the full moon day of October, 3 months after the Buddha went to the Deva's realm, he completed the Abhidhamma teaching to the Devas and the Brahmas. He then came down to the human realm, and the people received with light offering to his wisdom. It was one of the 3 most significant gathering of human, devas, nagas, yakas, to pay respect to the Buddhas in his lifetime. In other words, there are 3 times the greatest crowds of all different beings pay respect to the Buddha. One was coming down from the Tavadensa after Abhidhamma. The other one was rising up to Tavadensa after he showed the psychical ability to the people. And then Devas and Brahmas as well, the second time. The third time happened, I believe, in the third rain retreat. Again, crossing the river between Rajagaha and Vesali 3 times. Maybe if we have a time, we might expand it, a talk on the first time, because in this talk it's covered the second and the third time. Light Festival on the full moon day of October has become a tradition. At that time, up to that time, the Buddhists don't have tradition, but when Buddha came down from Tavadensa, everyone, including the Devas, offer lights. So that means in the evening or at night. That become a tradition, especially in the Theravada Buddhist country. And the Buddhists there would celebrate as Abhidhamma Day. So that's how Abhidhamma Days comes to be. It is nice to have a general knowledge about the Buddha's activities and events and how the rules and disciplines come to be and how the tradition flows down from those events that had happened in the 45 years of Buddha's ministry. At least it inspired me. I hope it does the same too for you. May all of you be developing saddha, faith and confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. And may you be able to practice mindfulness, insight meditation and attain Nibbana as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.